Farage has always thrived on headline numbers and simple slogans, and yesterday's Reform UK press conference was no different. I was going to say confidence. It really was a sort of confidence trick. He promised a vast savings of £234 billion by stripping foreigners of benefits and scrapping indefinite leave to remain. But as with the Brexit bust before it, the number collapses as soon as it's examined. What is left is not policy but performance, not arithmetic but assertion. Farage's figure came from the Centre for Policy Studies, but the think tank itself has already disowned it. The Office for Budget Responsibility data it rested upon have been revised, and the calculation is no longer valid. Yet Farage doubled down, claiming if anything the number was too low. This isn't policy making, it's the magician's trick of pulling a very large number out of a hat and asking the audience not to look too closely. The great majority of migrants already live under the condition known as NRPF, no recourse to public funds. They cannot routinely access universal credit or welfare until they achieve settled status. The savings Farage claims simply do not exist because the costs are not there in the first place. Reform's own spokesperson admitted that the 4.2 million EU citizens with settled status are exempt because their rights are protected by the Withdrawal Agreement. That removes the bulk of the supposed saving group. In reality, only about 431,000 non-EU residents with indefinite leave to remain would be touched. That is less than 3% of universal credit claimants. So the promise of hundreds of billions vanishes almost immediately. The EU settlement scheme is underpinned by a treaty, not a ministerial memo. To strip rights from EU nationals would be to breach the Withdrawal Agreement, triggering litigation and retaliation against Britons living abroad. Even non-EU ILR holders have rights under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights and the principle of legitimate expectation. Retrospectively removing their status would likely collapse under legal challenge, and simply quitting the ECHR would not be enough. There is domestic law that underpins this. The OBR's own modelling is clear. Higher migration improves the public finances because migrants are disproportionately working, are of a disproportionately working age, they pay taxes, and they draw less on pensions and health. The fiscal balance is positive. Farage's plan pretends that migrants are a drain when in fact they are a net source of contribution. Reform also proposes nearly doubling the salary threshold for work visas to around £60,000. That would exclude most nurses, care workers, lab technicians and many teachers. Employers already face shortages. 3/4 report difficulties recruiting. Raising the bar further would force hospitals to spend more on agency staff, raise costs and reduce tax receipts. That is not a savings, that is a bill. And even if you could strip benefits from migrants, many of them are in work but need help with housing costs. Remove that support and the problem shifts to local authorities who already face budget crises. A cut in one column produces a higher spend in another. Farage's headline ignores the displacement effect because displacement doesn't fit on a neat slogan. To abolish indefinite leave to remain means every settled migrant has to be reprocessed every 5 years. That means fees, appeals, tribunals, lawyers, caseworkers, and inevitably error. We've lived through Windrush. It cost billions and scarred lives. Farage is proposing Windrush on steroids with none of the costs counted. This is not about detail. It's about vibe and talk of deportations, family separations, stopping the Boris wave is simply a British echo of Trump's build the wall. It's designed to frighten, not to govern. And Farage is pitching ideas as if they were policies, but they are not designed to survive contact with reality. They are designed to animate his base. Farage's claims collapse on contact with facts. The savings are fictitious, the legal pathways are blocked, the economic logic is backwards, the human costs are enormous. What is left is performance politics, the applause line, the outrage, the borrowed theatre of Trumpism. Farage is not writing policy for Britain's future, he is auditioning for attention in the present. So the question is not whether Farage's numbers add up, because they do not. The question is whether Britain wants to be governed by vibes, slogans and scare tactics. By the way, we can see what that's like by looking across the Atlantic. Or does Britain want to be governed by reality? And that's not necessarily Rachel Reeves, but I'll get to that one later.